Longtime listeners will remember a series on Locked On Boston Bruins called Which Bruins Wore It Best? And we're counting down numbers 39 to 30 here on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Friday, August 11th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. Every single episode, free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All you got to do is smash that subscribe button, and each new episode will be automatically added to your feeds for you to download, listen, and enjoy. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. You can make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. It's the weekend, folks. Friday. And like I mentioned off the top, we are going to be counting down numbers 39 through 30 in Bruins jersey history and asking who wore it best. Now, this is a series that dates back to the pandemic days. Back in November, December of 2020, hockey was shut down. Everything was shut down. And we were looking for content here on Locked On Boston Bruins, so I kickstarted that series. You can go back in your podcast feeds and look up numbers 99 through 40 and see where we got to. Those episodes not on YouTube, unfortunately. Quick reminder before we get into it, you can find Locked On Bruins on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my dad jokes, hockey tweets on social media at Ian C. McLaren. Now, who wore it best? We're getting into some legendary Bruins here, folks. And how I do this is I go to Hockey Reference. I look at who wore these numbers and assess not necessarily the best player to have worn that number, but who wore it best in black and gold. Now, number 39, the first player to wear it was Greg Johnston from 1986 through 1990. He played 183 games with the Bruins and recorded only 54 points. Not bad. He was a right winger, drafted second overall by the Bruins in 1983. This upcoming season, this number will be worn by Morgan Geekie. Prior to that, it was worn by Matt Beleskey and Travis Green. Zdeno Chara also wore it from 2000 to 2004, 16 games, 3 points. Now, I'm giving this to Travis Green. Travis Green, back in the day, was a really good depth center for the Boston Bruins. He played the majority of his career in Long Island, as well as with the Anaheim Ducks. In fact, only 2 seasons with the Bruins, 146 games, 21 goals, 38 points. Now, why am I giving it to him? Well, I went to a game back in college at what is now called Scotiabank Arena. It was then the Air Canada Center. Bruins, Maple Leafs, and it was Travis Green who scored the overtime winner for the Boston Bruins to give them a huge win against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I got to see that in person. So that's why I'm giving it to him here on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Let's jump down to number 38 before we get to one of the big ones, of course. Number 38. Last worn by, Jesper Froden, I suppose. It has been assigned to Patrick Brown for this upcoming season. You have guys like Jordan Caron, Bobby Allen, Dave Scatchard, who have worn it in the past. I forgot, but Dave Andreychuk, legendary left winger in NHL history, a Hall of Famer, played for the Bruins for one season. 19 goals, 14 assists in 63 games back in the, what season was that? 1990-2000 NHL season when he was 36 years old. And then he was traded to Colorado. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember. Anyways, I forgot that he wore. So if we were going by best players in NHL history to wear this number, it would probably be him. But in terms of the most prolific Bruin to wear number 38, probably gotta give it to Vladimir Ruzicka. He played 3 seasons for the Bruins from 1990 to 1993. He was pretty good. 66 goals, 66 assists for 132 points in 166 games, including a 39 goal, 36 assist season in 91-92, 75 points in 77 games. Pretty good. We're going to give that to Ruzicka. That brings us to number 37. And of course, there is no question here as to who is the best player in Bruins history to wear this number. No, it's not Mo LeMay. It's not Wes Walls. It's not Vincent Riendo or Matthias Tiemander. It is Patrice Bergeron, the one and only, soon to be hung from the rafters. Now, Bergeron was honored with a lengthy standing ovation before his annual Pro-Am charity game in Quebec City on Thursday night. A lot of Bruins joined in, including Jeremy Swayman, Brandon Carlo, Matt Grzelcyk, Brad Marchand. A huge ovation, and rightfully so. Don't forget all that talk of Bergeron going to Montreal. He is a native of closer to Quebec City, and he was rightfully celebrated there last night. 19 years in the NHL, 1,294 games, 1,040 points, 6 Selke Trophy wins, a Stanley Cup, 3 conference championships. The accolades go on, and number 37 will soon be hung in the rafters. The first in the 30s, perhaps, because, of course, we all know that another number in the 30s will be retired as well, and that is 33. We'll talk about that later. 37, legendary number. I have jerseys for Johnny Busick, Ray Bourque. I need to get one for Chara and Bergeron to round out the captain jerseys. But, I mean, it's still hard to believe that he's not coming back. He will be missed dearly, and he will be celebrated accordingly this upcoming season for sure. Let's talk about numbers 36 through 34 or 33 coming up here after the break. FanDuel is the official sportsbook of Locked On, and you have football season about to kick off. FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all football season long. When you bet on a Super Bowl winner right now, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for each of that team's victories. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, the official betting partner of Locked On and the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, and everydayers can expect continuation of this series, Who Wore It Best in Black and Gold, with numbers 29 through 20 coming up on Monday. We'll do this all through next week as well. All right, so we talked about numbers 39 through 37. Patrice Bergeron, one of the best in franchise history. And at number 36, a bit slimmer pickings. You have Zach Ronaldo, who last wore it in 2016. Ivan Hummel, who wore it for a couple seasons back in the early 2000s. 18 total points for that guy. Oof, this might be a number where we got to go back a little bit. John Gruden wore it in 95, 96. Grant Ledyard, Jeff Odgers. Let's kick it back to Dave Reed, perhaps. 387 games with the Boston Bruins over 2 separate stints. 89 goals, 92 assists for 181 points. Dave Reed, the best in franchise history to wear the number 36. Mo LeMay making another appearance on here as well. Anybody familiar with Mo LeMay? Any Mo LeMay relatives out there, hit me up. Would love to have him on the podcast. Number 35, if you recall, this is in the 30s. We get a lot of goalies here. Andy Moog obviously stands out. He had 6 years with the Bruins, a record of 136, 75, 36 ties, an 886 save percentage, however. And, you know, he had 4 All-Star games, part of a Williams-Jennings Trophy winning tandem in 89-90. Who was he paired with that season? You may ask. It was him and Reggie Lemelin back in 89-90. What other accolades does he have? He did win 3 Stanley Cups, but as a member of the Edmonton Oilers prior to coming to Boston. So Andy Moog, certainly a candidate for number 35. Who else is up there? Well, of course, our boy Linus currently wears number 35. In black and gold, he has a record of 66, 16, and 3, a 928 save percentage, which is much better than Moog's, albeit, of course, in a different time, different era. He does have an All-Star appearance, a Vezina, and the William Jennings Trophy. So, by way of him winning the Vezina, you know, Moog, overall career, better than Ullmark, but in terms of who has worn it best in black and gold, I think you got to give it to our boy Ullmark at this point. No disrespect to Andy Moog. He was the goalie of my childhood, but Ullmark has taken it to another level here over the past couple of seasons. Rob Tallis up there as well. Special shout out to Rob Tallis. But still, Ullmark is the guy right now. Number 34, we're getting some more goalies in the mix here. Jeff Courtnall wore it for the Bruins back in 1984. You know, fantastically talented winger in his day, but only, I guess he spent 5 years with the Bruins, 78 goals, 81 assists for 159 points, which is pretty good. Other names include Rick Zombo. Come on. Bob Beers. Come on. Paul Carey wore it. Carl Soderberg wore it. You got 2 all-time names there for the Bruins, Rick Zombo and Bob Beers. Byron Defoe was a very good goalie for the Bruins during his time. 104 wins, 132 wins with a 911 save percentage in 5 years with the Boston Bruins. Yeah, a really good goalie back in his day. Jeff Courtnall, Byron Defoe. I mean, that's a tough one. Maybe we should just give it to Bob Beers for perhaps having the best name in hockey history. It does not get much better than Bob Beers. He played 4 seasons with the Bruins, wore number 34 for one of those, 11 assists, 3 goals for 14 points in 77 career games. And honestly, one of the best names in hockey history. Which brings us to number 33, another one sure to be hung from the rafters, perhaps as early as this season. And that belongs to Zdeno Chara. Nobody has worn this number since he retired, and for good reason. Nobody should. 14 years with the Bruins, 1,023 games, 481 points, including 148 goals. He won a Norris Trophy with the Boston Bruins. He was a multi-time All-Star, Mark Messier Leadership Award, Stanley Cup champion in 2011, and, one of the greatest Bruins defensemen of all time. One of the great leaders in franchise history. We talked about, how Patrice Bergeron carried on Chara's legacy of inclusion and welcome in the locker room. And it would be cool if both of those guys had their jerseys retired in this upcoming centennial season. Nobody is better than Zdeno Chara with this number. It's just insane. He's one of the best players in franchise history, without question. Other players that have worn it in the past, Hannu Toivonen for a time, Benoit Hogue, Anson Carter, probably the guy most known for wearing it. Special shout out to Anson Carter. I really liked him. 70 goals in 211 games with the Boston Bruins, but it's not even a conversation. It is Zdeno Chara. And we'll get to numbers 32 through 30 coming up after the break. So the first bit here highlighted by Patrice Bergeron at 37, Zdeno Chara at 33. Some blasts from the past as well. I forgot that doing some research here, Craig McTavish played for the Bruins for a time. Jeff Courtnall, Dave Andreychuk. We look at number 32. You know what? You got to give it up for the current general manager, Don Sweeney. This is where I learned that Craig McTavish wore number 32 for the Boston Bruins. He played 5 seasons for the Bruins, 44 goals, 66 assists for 110 points. After being drafted by the Bruins in the 9th round in 1978. Don Sweeney had a pretty long and relatively productive career. I should mention Jeff Courtnall wore number 32 here as well, on top of the previous number. Again, 78 goals, 81 assists, 159 points in 259 games with the Bruins. Sweeney, though, longevity, 15 years with the Bruins, 1,052 games. Not really known for being an offensive defenseman, although I do recall using him in NHL games on Sega Genesis and putting some in from the point. 52 goals, 210 assists for 262 points in 1,052 games. Led the NHL in plus minus at plus 30. No, ranked 7th. Not really many accolades for our boy Don Sweeney, but a long career, rocking number 32 for the Boston Bruins, and did not win a Stanley Cup, has not won a Stanley Cup as general manager. So you could give it to McTavish or Courtnall here, but seeing as he does have a long tenure as general manager, we're going to give it to our boy, Don Sweeney. Number 31 is a real who's who of, who are these guys? Jerry Cheevers wore this number for the Bruins. He has 226 wins in black and gold, 901 save percentage. Obviously, a very legendary and talented goalie. He won 2 Stanley Cups as a member of the Boston Bruins. So he's got to be up there. He's the guy. At number 31. There are a lot of other players you may have heard of. Jacques Plante wore it for a year in Boston. Ron Graham, Yves Belanger, Daniel Berthiaume, Blaine Locker, who was tabbed as the next guy for a time, Tim Chevalier, Kay Whitmore, Steve Shields, just a bunch of B-level goalies. But Jerry Cheevers, he's up there, and he belongs there with the Boston Bruins. 12-1 with a 925 save percentage in the 1970 playoffs. He went 6-2 with a 915 save percentage in the 1972 playoffs. The Bruins won 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, you can make an argument for him being having his number retired as well, but so far that has not occurred. All right, let's go to number 30 to round out today's podcast. You have Keith Kincaid, who wore it last, Chad Johnson before him, and then our boy, Tim Thomas. He had a couple of different numbers as a member of the Boston Bruins, but he wore 30 from 2006 to 2011. It was cool to see Thomas featured on Bear Tracks this past week. He was helping out with some relief from the flood in Vermont. Really cool to see him rocking the Spoked Bee once again, helping out his fellow neighbor. You know, he had a lot of flack for not going to the White House, etc., but he belongs in the conversation to have his number retired as well. 2 Vezina trophies, a William Jennings trophy, the Conn Smythe, and a Stanley Cup in 2011. For his career, he appeared for his career, he's got a 933 playoff save percentage, which is ridiculous. 2009, 935. 2011, a 940 save percentage. During his career with the Bruins, 378 career games, 260 wins, 921 save percentage, 31 shutouts. You can make a real argument that he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and he also should have his number retired. So that's 3 candidates in the 30s. Bergeron, Chara for sure. Tim Thomas, you can make an argument that he belongs up there, and perhaps as they continue to connect with him and build up some more goodwill, then that might actually indeed happen one day. All right, that's it for numbers 39 through 30. Hit me up in the comments if you disagree or have other candidates, and we will be back on Monday with numbers 29 through 20 here on our Which Bruins Wore It Best series, a continuation from one begun back during the pandemic in 2020. Thank you so much for listening, my friends. I hope you're all having a great week, taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other, and we'll be back here on Locked On Bruins with a fresh episode on Monday. Have a great weekend.